Welcome everybody to episode 174 of WordPress Weekly for Wednesday, December 10th, 2014. I'm your host, Jeff Chandler, joined by the rainy and soaked Marcus Couch. Marcus, how are you this week?
Good. It stopped raining, so there's no more rain. Not till this weekend. But we're good. It's amazing just what a little bit of rain will do to an environment that hasn't seen it in such a long time. But holding steady here, got a lot of great plugins to talk about and a lot of great news to run down this week. It's just a solo show with you and I, and we've got a lot to talk about.
Exactly. I wanted to give everybody an update on the status of WordPress 4.1. I managed to participate in the WordPress development chat today, which is usually held on Wednesdays in the afternoon Eastern Time. And it looks like if it hasn't released yet, at some point tonight, we'll see WordPress 4.1 release candidate 1 released. And if everything goes well and there's no major blockers discovered, we should see WordPress 4.1 release next Tuesday.
Right.
Now, these release dates are always tentative. Things can change. But right now, it looks like WordPress 4.1 will be released next week. And when it does, we'll give you the rundown on everything that's new on next Wednesday's episode. Hopefully it's released before the next episode. That'd be pretty neat.
Any speculation as far as what blues or jazz artist this particular version is named after?
Absolutely not. If you want to talk about something that's top secret, it's always the name of the release. Even I found out even those who are controlling the release have no idea who it's going to be until up until that last moment when they get a message from Matt as to what the name of the release is going to be. So it's held close to the vest until just that moment before, and then everybody knows.
Well, I'm hoping it's Muddy Waters. That would be great.
Muddy Waters.
Because I have in my office a old Chicago blues posters. One is Otis Rush, who I believe was Otis.
Mm-hmm.
The other one was Big Wolf. So if it's Muddy Waters, I've got every actual blues/jazz artist in one poster. So
nice. It's almost like having WordPress, the Jazz Edition, on your wall.
Really, yeah. And I've actually owned these posters for close to 15 years, even before WordPress. So that's kind of some weird symmetry.
Excellent. So everybody keep an eye on that, and hopefully we'll be talking about a new release come next Wednesday.
Yeah.
So one thing I wanted to spend some time here on today's show to talk about, because I think it's a pertinent discussion that it's worth discussing every few years. It's something to be mindful of, and that is the question: what would it take for WordPress to lose its dominance? Now, when I say dominance, I'm talking about primarily market share. WordPress is 11 years old. It's used on 20% of the web. Right now, it's the leader. Nothing comes close in terms of content management software, in terms of what WordPress is doing on the web. And if you look at WordPress, it's popular, and it's popular because of its community, its ecosystem, and it's one of its tenets, or one of the things that values, is backwards compatibility, and it also has an easy upgrade path. But Mike Johnston over at CMS Critic asked a question a few days ago. He asked, what would it take to dethrone WordPress? And he lists a couple of different suggestions. According to him, he seems to think that Ghost is on the right path right now, that some things need to change. We'll have to see how it plays out. But he thinks Ghost is on the right path. He also says that for a competitor to come out of nowhere, that they should focus on marketing to developers, offer a migration path, so whatever this software is, it would have an easy migration path from WordPress to whatever it is, offer a hosted and self-hosted version of the software, and build up a community. So I think that's pretty good for a start, but I think in terms of the, I don't know if you want to call it the downfall of WordPress, what could happen, how could it happen? I don't think it's any one thing. I think it's a combination of factors, which include the product leadership could routinely ignore the majority. it becomes large, bloated legacy software that blocks innovation. Competing CMS comes along that does everything WordPress does except better. The community en masse disappears or loses interest in favor of a competing product, or this is a funny one, a huge scandal takes place involving Automattic, the WordPress Foundation, and those close to the project.
Oops.
I'm not sure how number 5 could ever happen. I don't understand how I can't even fathom what type of scandal could ever take place between those 3 organizations. But you never know. You never know what could happen or the possibilities. I think number 2, when I mentioned number 2, where it could become large, bloated, and legacy, some of that is already happening in WordPress. I'm not sure if at the point right now it's blocking innovation, but because it's reliance on backwards compatibility, there is a lot of legacy code in WordPress, and I wonder if at some point, if we continue on this path, the life cycle of software development, could we end up at a point where we're so focused and so tied up on making sure everything is backwards compatible that we can't move forward because we don't want to end up snipping off a part of the long tail of WordPress users. I think out of all the different options, that one's probably most likely. But Marcus, you make a living sort of in and around WordPress, and this is something maybe I don't know if you think about at all, but what are your thoughts? What could just come out of nowhere and take over, at least not WordPress out of its dominant market share factor?
Well, I disagree with one particular part of the analogy of Ghost. And the thing that is not being discussed in that, you say build a community. Well, not only just a community of people that will help you develop the platform and use the platform, but you've got to get buy-in from the IT community out there. Do you know how hard and how long we fought to get WordPress used in mainstream, media centers and things? I used to be the director of marketing.
It's still an ongoing battle too, with the enterprise.
I used to be the director of marketing at Entrepreneur Media that did Entrepreneur Magazine, Entrepreneur.com. And this was back in 2007, and you wouldn't believe the fight that we had to go through security-wise and all that just to get one back-end WordPress installation that somebody could blog with. And to say that Ghost can start to do that and get the buy-in from the business community, from e-commerce people and stores and people that are hooked into things like Zapier and Salesforce and all of that, yeah, Ghost is going to need a time machine and about 10,000 people to get it anywhere near where WordPress prominence is. So I have no worries of that. As far as things that could bring WordPress down, it's very hard to say because there are so many people that are working on helping to patch security holes and issues and exploits, even down to the plugin level. So it's very difficult to disseminate exactly what the weaknesses of WordPress are beyond just simple code issues and compatibility and the fact that the mobile app really sucks and those kinds of things. Those are really the only entry points that someone could gain a foothold on WordPress, and I think that maybe that behooves the WordPress development community to patch those holes so that those opportunities to exploit those weaknesses don't exist.
So if we're thinking long term, what about this? What about thinking of it this way? What about the next generation? Let's say the teenagers of today, or even those who are younger. What if they don't want to use? What if they find out that WordPress is just clunky? They don't want to use WordPress because that's what everybody else has used. They move on to something else, or there's just a slew of different services that pick up where WordPress leaves off, and WordPress just sort of fades from existence, fades from being the thing that everybody wants to use in order to blog, because maybe blogging just isn't the thing anymore.
Well, I'll give you a perfect example of that. I am helping one of these girls that's a beauty guru. She's in her 20s now, but she started when she was 15, and she's doing things on YouTube. She's got close to 2 million subscribers on her channel and is quite an authority in that. Do you think she has WordPress for the domain that I purchased for her? No. She just has that forwarded to her Tumblr blog. and that's what she wants to use as her platform. We tried WordPress. She just didn't want to use the software or have the learning curve or be able to do any of that stuff. She just wanted to use Tumblr, and that's it. So literally, she goes through a masked forwarded domain that gets close to 200.
Uh-oh. Think we might have lost you, Marcus. I think we lost Marcus. I'm not sure what happened there. Nope, I cannot hear you. Thankfully, only those who listen to this show live will be able to hear what's going on. I'll have to go back and edit this part out. Good thing for editing. I guess you're going to have to close out and come back in. I don't hear you at all. So Marcus is dropped away here. Doggone technical issues. I hate when that happens. That ruins the flow of the show. And since he's my co-host, I guess I could have, in a way, rock and rolled it. But we'll wait for him to get back because I have the luxury of going back and editing the show via the MP3. So everyone out there listening live can hear the behind the scenes, which really isn't nothing behind the scenes. Oh, here he comes. He's back.
Got me?
Yes.
Got me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Just dropped off for no reason. So you were talking about how you have a client or know someone who is going through more trouble than what you think would be worth just using WordPress just because they don't want to use WordPress and they like Tumblr.
Yeah, and so she gets 250,000 unique visitors a month to her website, and she'd rather use a masked domain that goes to her Tumblr account than using WordPress, just because of the learning curve and because the mobile platform isn't where she needs it to be, and that's where she does most of her content creation, even down to, editing with iMovie on her phone and putting her own intros and stuff like that. So that interface, that, let's just say the iPhone style interface where you're just uploading a picture and typing text, and that's the way it's formatted, maybe that's where some of WordPress needs to go, to be a little bit simpler, sort of the Facebook app model where you can put a lot of content.
Well, this
in technology.
There you are. You dropped out again, but now you're back.
Boy, I'm so poignant too with my speech today. If WordPress really wants to evolve, it will take on more of the Facebook app type technology where you can do all of your content creation right within your phone, and that includes sending pictures, geotagging, checking into places, stuff like that, and all do it within the phone interface rather than WordPress, which has a horrible phone interface in creating content. And that's why people like this particular young lady like to use Tumblr over WordPress.
So one of the things I mentioned is a competing CMS comes along that does everything WordPress does except better. Do you think that a competing product would necessarily have to have feature parity, or could it have less things that WordPress does, but does what WordPress does except better?
Well, in that instance, I think just bridge technology would work. So it's just the interface that WordPress is lacking in that part, and somebody just needs to design a better mousetrap as far as the interface goes from a mobile or a tablet perspective.
Well, and if we look at what the REST API is all about, which seems to be all about being able to create different types of interfaces for WordPress, well, that's one less thing I think WordPress will have to worry about, where it's WordPress underneath, but using the REST API, you can create a alternative interface so that there's still WordPress things going on in the background, but maybe it's a better experience because of this custom interface you've created.
Right, and that's a big opportunity for people listening that are developers and going, boy, what do I do that's really not out there interface-wise or app-wise regarding WordPress? That's it. That's you got to build a better door as far as from mobile response getting into WordPress and learn the REST API and build, like we said, build a better mousetrap.
And when it comes to building a community, it's not like something that's not something you can do overnight. You need time, and the software has to find this balance between easy to use, where users can pick up on it and it's easy to learn, and it has to be easy to develop for. And WordPress over time has sort of drifted, I think personally, has drifted away from the ease of use end user perspective and has become maybe a bit friendlier to develop on. At least it will be when the REST API comes along. But if you can somehow find that sweet spot between being easy to use plus easy to develop for, that's where I think you've got the most opportunity to really build a robust community around your product.
Yeah, and that's the biggest strength that we have is the community. And that's where Joomla fails. That's where Drupal fails. We have boots on the ground. We have local meetups that anybody can go to and get their questions answered. That's a tough act to follow, to put, that much. These guys have known each other for a decade and swear by this platform and will help anybody who asks a question. I'm speaking of meetups. So we've got WordCamps all over the planet. WordCamp everywhere, right?
WordCamp. Is that trademarked?
Hey, I don't know. So, that's like saying combustion engines are going to go away because with electric. Well, not really. You can't get industry to change. You can't get municipalities to change. You can't get commerce to change. And that's we've really got something here with this WordPress platform, and it's going to be a tough hand to beat.
Well, whether it's 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, however long it's going to take, all good things must come to an end, and WordPress at some point won't be the top dog anymore. It will be replaced or supplanted by, if not one thing, several other things. But we just don't know when it's going to be. But at least in the near term, it certainly doesn't look like it's going to be anytime soon. I'd say within the next 3 to 5 years, WordPress is still, especially when that REST API comes along. The REST API, I mean, if there is a need for WordPress to go through sort of a renaissance, if it's needed, I think that's going to be the time period. Within the next 2 to 4 years, WordPress may go through some sort of renaissance period. So we'll see what happens. But it's not going away anytime soon.
Well, the litmus test for this whole thing, if any platform is making headway on WordPress, you'll know by the adoption rate of the host providers. So the second that you see a new icon next to WordPress as far as being installed, then it's starting to hit mainstream.
And you're talking about in all of these script installers like Fantastico, Softaculous, things of that nature?
Exactly. So once you start to get host buy-in, then you've got it. But right now, WordPress is really the main thing, and even GoDaddy, even just in the last year and a half, is embracing WordPress. So I don't see them adopting any kind of newfangled third-party weird CMS anytime soon, and that's where the money is. So that's going to be your barometer on who's making headway in the CMS game.
That's a great way to see it before maybe everybody else takes notice of it. So, Marcus, I don't know if you use reCAPTCHA or CAPTCHA, yes. reCAPTCHA, anything of that nature, but Google has made a change to their API, and now instead of trying to guess what these fancy, squirrely-looking words are, which I have no idea how I get on the first or second try, or even doing the audio version, now you can simply select a checkbox which tells them you're not a robot. So the API utilizes an advanced risk analysis engine that is capable of discerning between users and bots, and what do you know? It's just as simple as a checkbox. So what do you think of that? Is this something you're gonna take advantage of? Do you use CAPTCHA on any of the sites that you manage?
I don't. I use the honeypot version, the fake honeypot thing on Gravity Forms and such. However, I will say this does nothing to stop the automation, maybe out of bots. But there are services out there like Death by CAPTCHA and what are some of the other ones? DCAPTCHA, I think it's called, something like that.
DCAPTCHA.
Yeah, Death by CAPTCHA is one that I subscribe to, and it allows you to use tools and still get by the Google CAPTCHA services. Here's how it works. If a CAPTCHA comes up, it actually kind of iframes it to an actual live human being that sees that iframe on their site, and then they just type in what it is, and then it transmits that, and then it transmits back to your browser, and then it types that in for you, and then it says go. And that works. And I pay, I think, $6 per 1,000 CAPTCHA solves. So what is that? Not even a tenth of a penny. So it can be circumvented very easily, and it doesn't take a bot to do it. There's plenty of people in third world countries that, you know, would make a good living just sitting there typing CAPTCHAs that pop up on their screen all day. So just a word to the wise, it's change all. Now they're just going to have that thing up, and now a human being's just going to check the box for you, and that's it.
Yeah, I'll have to look more into the official blog post, but there's already quite a few plugins. In fact, services like Snapchat, WordPress, Humble Bundle are already using the results of the API. And for example, 60%, more than 60% of WordPress's traffic and more than 80% of Humble Bundle's traffic on reCAPTCHA encountered no CAPTCHA experience, and users got to those sites faster. I believe that was a stat regarded to where they didn't have to type any things in to get access to the site. It wasn't. I haven't seen any stats related to how many spammers are getting in through this system, which I think will come out in due time. We'll keep you posted. But WordPress 4.1. Speaking of 4.1 again, there's a new tab that's been introduced. If you go to Add New in the plugins, go to Add New, you'll see a new tab up at the top. There's already featured, popular, favorites, and depending on which version of WordPress you're using, beta testing, but there's going to be a new tab called Recommended. So what this is going to do is it's going to give you a list of plugins. It's going to recommend some plugins to you based on the ones that you have installed and similar groups of plugins that are installed on other WordPress websites. So everything is going to be data centric, and it's going to be it's through the API. So there's no actually changes to core that are gonna help this working out. It's all through the API, and I've tested it out, and I think over time the recommendations are going to get better based on the more data it has available to use. I was testing this out on a beta version of WordPress, so I don't think there's that much data, and that's why some of my recommendations were sort of made me scratch my head. But a lot of people seem to think that they don't really understand why this tab is being added. Of course, when you do a fresh install of WordPress, it seems kind of goofy that you would click on the recommended plugins because you don't have any installed. So I'm not sure where the recommendations will come from. So, which I believe a fallback method will be that it will show the same results as the popular plugins. So a little bit of goofy behavior there, but what do you think, Marcus? A good way to expose people to other plugins, or is this just not the right way to help people discover new plugins?
Well, I want to answer that. I want to just talk directly to Matt right now. Hi, Matt. I know you're listening. This is a great stage for a professional WordPress plugin critic like myself to be inserted right into the WordPress core. Like, wouldn't it be great if a video of Marcus just popped up and went, hey, you know what? The API tells me you got this for a contact form. I really think we need to get you into something a little nicer. Maybe Gravity Forms.
The first post on the tavern would be a plugin that disables Marcus Couch in the back end.
Hey. I would be like the Siri of WordPress plugins. Wouldn't that be great?
Oh, boy.
Yeah, Marcus. No, I think it's a good idea. I wish that we would have sort of a panel, maybe Pippin, since he's already the WordPress gatekeeper, and so to speak. Maybe myself, maybe you, a couple other people, and maybe we have some recommendations every week as far as cool plugins that people might want to check out around the world.
But what's the wouldn't that sort of if we start doing that manually with the recommended plugins, aren't we just in effect doing what we should be doing on the featured plugins page? Wouldn't we be doing sort of the same thing? So we'd have two tabs doing the same thing?
Well, let's change it around a little bit. Let's forget about recommended for a second, right? Let's go back to the discussion that you and I had when they started to introduce the plugin icon cards, the little avatars, whatever you want to call them. And I mentioned to you that those are a lot like the same graphics that are used in apps. Just the same thing. So why are we reverting to this stupid style again and not going to something a little bit more phone-esque as far as App Store-ish type presentation? Why not have the top reviewed plugins of the week? Why not have, and you can filter that down to month and year and all time and, what's the most downloaded this week? Why not revert to something like that? We have all the data.
I think one of the arguments from those who have seen this change is that, instead of having these recommended or some of these other tabs, why don't we just find a way to give users the ability to drill down and search for the plugins they're looking for better, so they could search by category, tag, date, reviews, you name it. Just give them the options, the different ways to drill down to find these various plugins instead of just these tabs, which just give you a handful of plugins.
Yeah, that would put me out of business as a plugin guy, but that's okay.
I don't know. My thought is I think recommended is a good idea. I think anything that can expose people to new plugins and at this point have it be automated, because once you start introducing the human element, everybody starts, the first thing people want to think of is how much money is that person getting paid under the table, to put that particular plugin in there or how they're recommending it. So I like the fact that it's automated. I don't know. We'll have to see how it works, and I'm interested in seeing a few weeks after it's pushed out and everybody's using WordPress 4.1 what their recommendations are, and see just how accurate they are. And maybe you see if people are reporting that, yeah, based on the recommended plugins, they're using a couple of different ones. Although it doesn't make sense if you're using, let's say, WordPress SEO by Joost de Valk, it starts recommending, all-in-one SEO or like 5 other different SEO plugins, because chances are you're not going to want to use 5 different SEO plugins. That just doesn't make sense.
And what if we even expanded the repository even further to where you could start to have friends and even befriend experts? Like you could friend me and see what plugins.
Your favorites.
I'm
plugin favorites.
New favorites by Marcus.
Here we go again. I know what you're going. You've talked about this before on the show. You want that social interaction with the plugins. You want to be able to download people's favorites. You want to see what people are favoriting. I know where you're going with this.
Yeah, why not?
The plugin social network.
I want to know what Chris Lemma's favoriting. Don't you?
Yes, but that requires, if you find out, something bad may happen to you. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, to me, that's something that's I'd like to get on follow his radar path as far as where he's going and look at his stuff, and maybe you could have private favorites and public favorites, and why not? I mean, look, I look at plugins to me as hit records. Right? Some of them are really mega hits, and some of them are just one-hit wonders, and sometimes the developers know how to crank out the hits, and sometimes they don't. And really, if you looked at it just like iTunes and got the repository to have that same look and feel, I don't know, man. It would be great. It really would.
So we'll have to see what happens, and everybody will hopefully have a chance to try out the recommended tab to see what the results are next week when 4.1 may be released. So if anyone out there is using a service called NRelate to serve up related posts on your website, you better start looking for alternatives, because it's going to shut down on December 31st. Now, NRelate was launched back in 2009, and so far they've provided billions of recommendations to over 100,000 sites. Now, apparently, the parent company is going to shift its assets to support its internal reference style content properties. So that's a bunch of marketing speak I don't even understand. So there's a farewell FAQ available on the NRelate website, but this got us talking about related post alternatives. Now, there's a few popular ones out there. There's YARP, which is yet another related post plugin, Jetpack Related Post, and a few others. Even Related Post for WordPress is a popular plugin/service. We use Jetpack Related Post on the Tavern, and it's actually worked out very well. The posts are usually related to the article in question. They look great if the images, if the posts that it's referencing have an image in the post or a featured image. Sometimes it will show just the context of the article, the excerpt with the title, and to the other related posts will have images, so maybe it doesn't look that good. But overall, it's been working fairly well. And the best thing about it is it's a service. WordPress.com actually indexes all of the content on your site, the author. It makes pretty much a mirrored backup of your content, does all of the processing on their server, and then the result is the related post on your website. So they do all of the processing for you. For a few years, I've used YARP on the Tavern. I didn't experience any problems, but eventually when I reached a certain amount of content, ended up experiencing some performance problems on the website, and of course, I don't know if it was actually related to the plugin, but that's what the web host said. So I don't know if they were trying to get out of the blame or not, but ended up getting rid of related posts for a while until Jetpack came out with the related post module. I think using a plugin to handle related posts is good, but if there's a way, if you could offload all of that processing to find the relationships between the posts, if you could offload that to a service, I think that's the route you should go.
Yeah, I've never had luck with related posts. Even when you set in things like WooCommerce, where you even set related products, it still is wonky. It never comes out the way that you think it will. And it's almost like you have to do it manually all the time anyway. So I don't know if it's tags, I don't know if it's custom post types, and you have to just filter and disseminate based on that. But I've never had luck with it at all.
So I wonder if is there a specific difference between related posts and related products, between the content and everything else? I wonder.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a process, if it's something in core. I don't know. It just always seems like it's never intuitive enough.
Well, when it comes to content, Jetpack Related Post has worked out very well for us. If you use a related post plugin or service, send us an email at jeffc@wptavern.com. I'll forward it to Marcus. Let us know what you use to handle either A, related posts, or B, related products. We might have a few WooCommerce or e-commerce listeners out there. Maybe somehow you could secretly get the code from Amazon, since that works so well. But yeah, they have massive data that they could use, which probably helps.
Well, yeah, they have buying patterns of millions of people, so they know down to conversion rates what really is a related item.
So if you're looking for a different way of managing multiple websites, there's a new service out in beta called WP Dash. It's a new service that's launched by a group of WordPress developers in Poland, and it joins the ranks of Managed WordPress, WP Remote, and Infinite WordPress, including a bunch of other of these types of websites. And according to the release post, you can add and modify posts and comments with WP Dash, install themes and plugins, one-click updates, generate reports, create manual and automatic backups, monitor uptime, monitor accessibility of link pages and inbound link statistics, and two-factor authentication with Rublan. So that gives it a little extra touch of security. And if you look at their dashboard, which obviously you can't see because we're we're doing a audio show here, but they have a pretty nice looking dashboard with icons, and they present things in a pretty way. It seems like in a logistical fashion. So that's pretty cool. If you are interested in joining the beta, giving it a shot, you can visit the service at wp-.io. And Marcus, I don't know, is this something you might get involved with the beta? Are you interested in all these various WordPress multiple managing WordPress website services?
Oh, of course I am. I mean, come on, I manage over 300 domains for different clients plus myself. I am a current client of CMS Commander because I like the aspects of what it does and the fact that I can actually put a post out to multiple domains at one time just by selecting them. I can migrate from one WordPress installation and completely clone one domain to the other with just one click. It also does backups to Dropbox. So I don't know if WP- does all of this, but I will concur with you. The dashboard looks absolutely amazing as far as some of the SEO aspects of it, how it does keyword analysis, how it gives you some analytical data as well. So this is something that I've signed up to, and it's definitely worth paying attention to. I'm wondering what their premium versions will cost as far as hooking up, 100 sites. Right now, sites like CMS Commander for 100 sites, I think it's $40. So we'll see, but I'm very impressed with this, and I'm very appreciative that you brought this one to light.
Don't thank me, thank Sarah Gooding. She wrote the post, so I give her a shout.
Sarah.
So with that being said, that pretty much wraps up this week's news. But before we get out of here, we have to do our traditional plug-in picks of the week. Of course, brought to you by Marcus Couch.
Hey. Well, this might go into news as well. Just as well. It's a very new kind of plugin. Jeff, you and I have had Nick Haskins from Aesop Story Engine on the show. You know that I'm a huge fan of Aesop Story Engine and all of the capabilities. I love the parallax type style and some of the presentations. But I will say, and I've said this before, it's difficult to set it up. You have to kind of use a specific Aesop theme, and some of those are even premium. And it's good, but for simple things, it's so difficult for me to grasp. And then this guy named Patrick Shanahan emailed me, and he's got this plugin called Story FTW, Story for the Win, and it's at storyftw.com. And the best way that I can describe this is it turns WordPress into kind of a SlideShare-esque type slide situation. It really presents everything in slides, but you can embed like a full animated GIF background. You can use a solid background. You can use a video background. You can use presentation stuff, full capacity of any short codes or any kind of embedding of anything that you want to use. And it does it in such an easy way, and it is beautiful on mobile devices, on tablets, on the phone. It looks awesome, the way that it presents it, the responsive style. This is one to watch. So I would definitely head over to storyftw.com and check it out for yourself. There's a full demo there. It's not even on the repository yet, but it is coming. I spoke to Patrick myself today. He is going to put it out. I told him make sure you put plenty of screenshots and all that kind of eye candy that we love to see in the repository. So Story FTW is what it is. Jeff, have you had a moment to just kind of peruse it and check out the capabilities?
Yeah, Story FTW, taking sliders to a whole new level.
Right.
That could be the slogan. But yeah, I've gone through, and sometimes I don't understand how practical it is to have your entire screen filled up with a video or a GIF or an image. But I suppose in certain certain aspects of telling the story, I guess that makes sense.
Okay, well let's talk.
But just having the slider and being able to maybe create different boards, panels for a presentation. Hey, this makes perfect sense. I mean, that's one way I would use it, or I could see me using it.
Yeah, I lost you there for a sec.
There you go.
Yeah. I want you to think of it in a different way. Let's not talk about it in the traditional sense of a blog. Let's take it as in maybe a recipe, maybe just step-by-step instructions on how to put something together. So you go to frame 1 and it says, unbox it and here's the thing, and then you slide it and it goes to the next one. Okay, step 2 is this, and maybe it's a video.
So basically what you're saying, this is yet another unique way of consuming content, or creating and consuming content in WordPress.
Absolutely. So it's really a new style in which to present that we haven't seen yet, as far as panel by panel. And I like how it's like a slider. Yeah, it is kind of actually turning posts into a slider, a full page slider format that's responsive and touch responsive and arrow responsive as far as on the keyboard. But think of the possibilities that this will soon present. It turns everything into this cool, vibrant kind of gallery that you can style, and it's not dependent on themes at all. So you can use it for business presentations or reports or any of that kinds of thing, and really drill down to panel by panel how you want to present it within WordPress. And understand, you can use this as maybe a lookbook or a style guide for shopping for the latest fashion or the latest, Christmas toys that you can flip through and click buy. Right? You could make it kind of a little catalog that's really a flip book. That's not like these fake magazine, flip through it type of things where the page turns.
So what you know of with Story FTW right now is that it's going to be a plugin, and I think you said something that's important. It's not dependent on a theme.
Right.
But could a theme? Well, I guess we'll find out when it's launched. But I'm going to guess that in a way maybe a theme could tie into the plugin or vice versa. I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, I think it's going to be shortcode based. So that you have
okay, I guess that would make sense.
Short code through what the different panels are going to be in the background color and the backgrounds and things like that. Probably a page builder, maybe, with different slides.
Do you know if he's going to have a hosted service? Is it enough to have a service based around this, or?
I don't know Patrick's plans, but I mean, we can definitely book him on the show and talk a little bit more about it and his vision and maybe where he's going with it.
All right, so we'll link up to it in the show notes. Right now, it's just a sort of a splash page where you get to scroll through and see what it's capable of, and then at the end, it gives you a little box that says you can put in your email address and you'll be notified of when it's available or news and updates. So we'll link up to that in the show notes. What's your next plugin, Marcus?
Next one is called Test User Role. And Jeff, you have a site that has a lot of different user roles as far as what people are allowed to contribute and add to the show, and or add to the site rather. And I too have a lot of different capabilities within one site. And often I want to see exactly what they see. And rather than having to just log in as them, I can use this new plugin called Test User Role. And right where the Howdy menu is, that little bar that you see on the front end, you click that and you can actually simulate what it looks like to be one of those lesser roles within your site.
That's very cool.
Then you can just click back and get right back into super admin mode.
That makes it, I got to say, something like that is so convenient when you compare it to having to actually log into the person's user account and then log out and log back into your account. This takes that out of the equation.
That's right. So what better plugin to bring to this week's episode than Test User Role? Next one. It's, I've been on this kick of all these new kinds of fangled WordPress things as far as, we brought up Story FTW, and this one is called Grid. And it's a kind of a containerist drag and drop style landing page creator. And it allows you to really create and maintain different landing pages built on these little boxes that you just pull in, different columns that you can create. It reminds me of iThemes Builder, which we talked about on last week's show as one of the early things in iThemes. Where the Photoshop files and have to convert that over to WordPress as far as landing pages, and this is a perfect plugin for it. It's really just something that with a few clicks you can really templatize and get things going exactly the way you need to. It's not really a theme builder in that sense, as it is just something to get a basic header there. Maybe if you wanted a quick sidebar with some ads on it, or a lead form or something like that, then this is really something to try out. It's called Grid, and I think it's one of the nicest landing page creation plugins that I've seen in the repository for a long time.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm taking a look at the screenshots, and I can see they give you all these different containers, and I imagine all those containers are things that can hold content, and then on the screen you could just drag and drop which columns those containers show up in, so it gives you a chance. I mean, you have one page, but you can manipulate where those different boxes of content show up without having to use code. So there you go. Someone's out there is always trying to make the job of creating specific pages and sites easier. Here you go. This is just a matter of drag, drop, edit, type in, drag, drop, publish. That's about it.
Exactly. And so where this is really nice is that you can do a lot of A/B testing with this, because you can clone the layouts. So you can make one and then maybe switch out the title in the other one. And if you use Webmaster Tools or any of those types of things, you can swap A/B tests and see which one works the best for you. It's also really nice because maybe you have a short code that can help display different, custom post content within this particular landing page. So if you have city data or geo data or specific product data, then this is really a good way to do this, so that you can kind of create the shell and then put the meat of the sandwich on the inside as far as what it is that you need to create with your different landing page variants. So it's a really nice plugin to check out, Grid.
Excellent. So that's going to wrap it up for this week's edition of WordPress Weekly. You can find show notes for this episode and all previous episodes on www.tamron.com, and you can follow me on Twitter at Jeffro. That's JEFFR0, and Marcus Couch. How about yourself?
You can find me at my website, marcuscouch.com, and also on Twitter at marcuscouch.
Excellent. So we'll be back talking with you about WordPress next Wednesday, and we could be talking about WordPress 4.1. We'll see. But until next week, have a safe and enjoyable weekend, everyone.